On 5 News tonight, more violence at the Euros, new details of the Orlando killer, and a father's emotional plea in the Oscar Pistorius murder case. As we come on air, reports of more violence, this time between Russian, English and Welsh fans in Lille. It follows shocking video emerging of Russian hooligans attacking England fans, as Downing Street says it's sending in more British police officers. Also this evening, reports the man responsible for the Orlando shooting had visited the club several times before as a customer. And as Oscar Pistorius appears in court to be sentenced for murdering Riva Steenkamp, her father describes his pain.
Finding out what happened, it devastated us. Oscar has to pay for what he did.
Good evening, welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Matt Barbette, and as we come on air this evening, there's been violence in the French city of Lille. It's not yet clear which football fans are involved, but Russian, English and Welsh supporters are all in the city ahead of Euro 2016 games in the next 2 days. Videos show chairs being thrown and standoffs outside a bar. It comes as the authorities there stepped up their efforts to stamp out hooliganism at the tournament. We can go live now to Lille and speak to Peter Lane. And Peter, tell us more about what's been happening there this evening.
Yes, Matt. Well, what happened just a short while ago didn't appear to last long, but it has already got people here in Lille spooked. Only a few fans were involved as far as we could tell, but it was a sudden change in the atmosphere. Police who were in standby mode on the streets and the corners around the fan zone suddenly mobilised, got into their vans and their bikes. We followed them. They rushed down to the area just in front of the station where there was a row of bars and where tempers were flaring. Tables overturned, a bottle thrown, fans squaring up to each other. A brief scuffle tonight outside a bar in Lille, thought to have involved Russian fans approaching England and Wales supporters, enough to prompt the arrival of riot police, shields and helmets ready. The authorities here already anxious. Earlier, sickening pictures emerged, shot from a small camera worn by a Russian thug in what appears to be an orchestrated attack on England fans in Marseille at the weekend. The Russians carry sticks and pick up chairs as they pounce, much of the footage too distressing to broadcast, but it's not this Russia has been punished for. Their suspended disqualification comes after a group of Russians charged at England supporters inside the stadium. Russia's players know the risk if it happens again.
We want to play this competition. We are very happy to be here, and that's what would be a very stupid thing, and it's going to be a big disappointment if we go out and for the whole country.
And from UEFA, an acknowledgement that efforts to segregate the two sets of fans weren't good enough.
We will implement additional corrective measures for the games coming up in Lens and Lille, and we hope that those measures will be sufficient to avoid any other crowd trouble during the matches.
As attention moves to Lille, there's concern, not least from the FA. Russia play here tomorrow. England play in nearby but much smaller Lens on Thursday, so both sets of supporters will congregate here.
You'll note I'm not wearing an England strip, England colours in any way, so I've come incognito, for want of a better word.
Yeah, I just want to get to the hotel, probably take my England shirt off, and then, hopefully enjoy a good game later.
Now, the important thing to make clear is that the punishment handed down to Russia today is only about what happened inside the stadium, so it doesn't let England off the hook, because both teams still face a separate, wider warning from UEFA about the behaviour of their fans. Any more violence anywhere from them during this tournament, and England and Russia could be sent home. So for a second day, the England squad have been talking about the danger of fans cutting short the football.
It would be devastating. Our message is for everyone just to be safe and sensible, and by all means enjoy their day, enjoy the match, but be respectful.
And mindful of the scenes we witnessed last weekend, more UK police are being deployed to France.
I have no doubt whatsoever, if you come and commit problems, you will go to prison in France. We've had 6 England fans imprisoned already. So if you come in to cause trouble, this is not the place to come, because you will face consequences.
These pictures may have only just emerged, but they are stark proof of how far some so-called football fans at Euro 2016 will go.
And Peter, it's not what any genuine football fans would have wanted to see, more violence this evening, especially with that suspended disqualification hanging over Russia. But the authorities there under real pressure to tackle this now.
Yes, and what has just happened here tonight will certainly be noted by them. It's a worry for all concerned. We have to put it into context, particularly compared to what we've seen down in Marseille. It was a small flashpoint, a small spark this evening, but it is the beginning of the evening, so the police and the authorities here will watch what happens carefully. I'm sure most fans are hearing those messages that are coming from players, managers, police, politicians, and are heeding the message. But England, of course, will be playing Wales here. We've seen some of their fans out tonight. They'll be worrying about the atmosphere, about the presence of potentially of Russian hooligans. We saw one man tonight wearing the T-shirt of a known Russian hooligan group. Today, the French authorities intercepted, they say, a number of Russians who were heading in this direction. Arrests were made, and some of those people are in the process of being deported. One thing which it's hoped will make a significant difference here will be much tighter controls on the sale and consumption of alcohol. So bars will be forced to close earlier than they were down in Marseille, and there'll be restrictions on having drinks out in the street. That didn't help with what has just happened down the road here, but the plan is that will be enforced over the next couple of days here in Lille and Lens.
Peter, many thanks to you. Well, let's get the views now of Chris Phillips, who's a security consultant and is former head of the government's National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. And Chris, will that make a difference, this banning of alcohol in Lille? Because as far as we know, a lot of these Russian so-called fans don't even drink anyway.
I think from the British fans, it will probably help. It certainly won't do any harm, because alcohol always plays a part in the issues that they have. I think we have to understand, though, that this is almost a throwback to the 70s and 80s, where we faced in the UK fans that really they had no interest in the football whatsoever, but they were there just to have a fight. And I don't think alcohol plays a part in that at all. I think they're there for that reason. And to some extent, the planning needed to be done before the tournament to stop these people from travelling.
You read more about these Russian ultras, as some are calling them. They are a different proposition. They seem incredibly organised. They're carrying certain weapons. Some are saying they don't drink. They actually live healthy lifestyles back at home because they're into things like cage fighting and boxing. They're there specifically for a fight. They are, and it's a macho thing that we face. Let's be honest, we faced this in the 70s and 80s in England in particular, and we've managed to calm that down by sensible policing and understanding the issues and actually identifying those people. But of course, this is a new thing, and Russia have got this group of people that are looking just for a fight. There's some condemnation from some in the Russian authorities, but also politicians there congratulating these thugs on the fighting. What do you make of that? Well, it's quite incredible. I can only think that he didn't have the full story, but you never know with these people. There is a macho culture in Russia that perhaps tends to make them think that they are doing something for their country. But these were innocent people being attacked. But the French police have also got to get their act together now and make sure that they police this in a way that's going to stop the attack. Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned it's a throwback to the 80s, and British police have had 30 years' experience in trying to deal with this problem, have had some success. Are other countries like Russia, like France, lagging behind in treating this like a genuine problem? Well, they've all looked at how the British police do this, because to most extents we've pretty much solved this. From time to time we get flash-ups, but generally the British police have solved this problem of hooliganism. But of course we're still paying for it with our reputation from years ago. But the French police know very well how we police sports events. They know very well how really you should get your police officers into the crowds to identify troublemakers, using spotters, using CCTV cameras to take people out before they cause a problem. But they're clearly not doing that. And I can only think that they are very strapped for people. And I think half the issues in the stadium were caused by the fact they didn't have any police officers in the stadium. They'd handed over security control, really, to a private company. Chris, many thanks. It's emerged that the gunman who shot dead 49 people in a gay bar in Orlando had been to the venue several times before. Witnesses say they believe that Omar Mateen had been there to pick up other men, one even saying they'd exchanged messages on a dating app. A survivor of the attack has been telling 5 News Tonight how he played dead to escape the carnage. From Orlando, Julian Drucker reports.
49 people who became the 49 victims were remembered here by thousands. They came to a special vigil in the centre of the city, a chance to say goodbye to those who lost their lives in Orlando's atrocity, and to show defiance.
We are here to stay. On behalf of Pulse, we want to send all of our love and thank you for your messages. Thank you for
this from the surviving staff of the nightclub where the attack took place.
Organised in just a few hours, this community vigil is being held for a city to reflect on its most horrific day.
All of the victims of Sunday morning's tragedy have now been identified. They were mainly in their 20s and 30s. The man behind the barbarism, 29-year-old Omar Mateen, had visited the venue several times over the last 3 years, according to reports. There's been no official comment on the claims. This evening, President Obama has tackled the issue of how someone like Mateen could legally purchase a gun.
People with possible ties to terrorism who aren't allowed on a plane shouldn't be allowed to buy a gun. Enough talking about being tough on terrorism. Actually be tough on terrorism and stop making it easy as possible for terrorists to buy assault weapons.
As investigators continue their examination of the area around the nightclub, one of those who survived the violence returned. Marcus told me how he somehow made it out alive.
I survived by jumping up from where I was because I played dead. So I jumped up, I jumped on the table, I jumped over that wall, I ran right to that 7-Eleven that you see right across that street. I ran right to that 7-Eleven.
Marcus also glimpsed the man who was about to kill 49 people.
Did you see Omar Mateen?
That name. Oh my God, that name. I seen that snake and the way he was standing there looking at us like we were just nothing. He had a little smirk on his face. He had this evil smirk on his face, and he was just, it was terrible.
At Orlando's main hospital, where the most seriously injured survivors are being treated, flowers and messages are in abundance. I spoke to Eddie, who left the club moments before the attack. He'd just said goodnight to his close friend, 32-year-old Christopher Leinenen, who was killed.
I think love is what will conquer. I have had so much love from my family and my friends and the victims' families, and I have to be strong for them. And I have to be strong for the world. We can't get under a stone and let these people get the best of us.
The last 48 hours have shown a city at its best, coping with a moment which has been one of America's worst.
And Julian, many more details emerging there today about the attack.
Yes, Matt, in the last few hours, some specific details about the seriously injured survivors of the attack. We knew that 44 had gone to hospital. We now know that 27 are still there. 6 of them are said to be in intensive care. Now, the most senior doctor at the hospital says he fears that that death toll of 49 could still go up. Less clarity today about the gunman, Omar Mateen. Suggestions in the media that he attended the club here several times. Some of the regulars here telling the US media that he himself was also a regular. A report in the last few minutes here as well that he apparently attended an event at the Disney Magic Kingdom theme park fairly recently that was organised for the gay community. So the question, was he also casing that as a potential target? The biggest question though, was he just inspired by ISIS, or was he directly going to target them?
Gillian, many thanks indeed. And it is a big question, and it's not yet clear what involvement IS had on that atrocity in Orlando. But an attack in France is being called an act of terror carried out by a known jihadist with links to the group. The attacker said he answered an appeal by IS's leader before stabbing to death a police commander and his partner. The couple's 3-year-old child was rescued. Simon Weiger has the details.
Larossi Abala, the latest young Frenchman to carry out a terrorist attack on home soil. He lay in wait for a police officer in his garden and then repeatedly stabbed him. Abala then went inside and killed the policeman's wife. SWAT teams went in to get him when they realised he may be about to kill the couple's 3-year-old boy. Abala not only knew his victim, he broadcast part of the siege on social media.
C'est un acte incontestablement terroriste.
The French president branded it an undeniably terrorist act. François Hollande said both the perpetrator and the organisation to which he had pledged allegiance claimed the attack. 25-year-old Larossi Abala was a French jihadist who French police knew well. He was first arrested in 2011 and imprisoned for 2.5 years in 2013 for trying to recruit jihadists to fight in Pakistan. Detectives admit they had been tapping his phone, but say there was no hard evidence to suggest he was planning an attack. He claimed allegiance to so-called Islamic State in his final messages. Police have arrested 3 of the attacker's contacts and also found a hit list containing the names of public figures. With Euro 2016 underway, the stakes could not be higher. Simon Weiger, 5 News.
Simon Weiger reporting on that shocking murder of a police officer and his wife in Paris last night. And before that, the Orlando attack that killed 49 innocent people at the weekend. Both these attacks have several similarities. They were carried out by one man, acting on his own and under his own initiative, and very much influenced by radical Islam. Both men pledged their allegiance to or had contact with so-called Islamic State. And crucially, both were known to these security services in their own countries. Earlier, I asked the former British Security Minister, Lord West, how intelligence agencies can try to stop these so-called lone wolf attacks.
Yes, the lone wolf attackers are probably the most difficult to detect. Certainly the Investigatory Powers Bill that's going through at the moment will enable us to look correctly at internet connections, what people are doing in terms of going onto the web. So, for example, if this man had talked to a bomb maker in Yemen and had talked to someone who was fighting for Daesh in Syria, the fact that we had those numbers and connections would make you think, well, hang on a minute, why is this chap doing this? And then you can look into it a little more thoroughly.
Is it the case that Britain so far has been better at tackling this kind of threat compared to France or the States, or are we just lucky?
We have been better at it because we have got better intelligence agencies, and every one of the attacks that we've thwarted in this country, the initial heads up were given to us by intercepts from GCHQ effectively. That is why these intercepts and things are so important. We give this evidence, of course, to our continental friends, so whenever there's a risk of an attack, we will let them know. And certainly going back 3 or 4 years ago, a little bit longer, 5 years ago, places like Germany and others said, oh, no one's going to attack us, it's just you in Britain and America. And of course, they found out how wrong that was, and we've been able to stop attacks in most European countries with evidence we've collected. So, so it is important to get that evidence, and we are better at it than them, but that doesn't mean you can't be attacked. We are under the threat level severe. That means it is highly likely there will be an attack. And as I often say to people, if you saw your doctor and he said it's highly likely you'll have a heart attack tomorrow, my goodness me, that would really focus your attention.
We've heard on this programme before how good we are at cooperating with other English-speaking countries, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, of course, but the French don't seem to want to share as much with us as we perhaps do with them. Is that your experience?
Certainly nations are very wary of sharing intelligence, particularly intelligence that relates to exposing agents and this sort of thing. There's no doubt that the most important intelligence link for us is with America. After that, it is the Five Eyes community. That's the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And then after that comes other sharing. But the fact that we've been heavily involved in Europe in terms of Europol and things like that, means that we have got better at getting intelligence from the European nations, and they have gained a huge amount. We have made them so much better. We've helped make them safer. It might not seem that by these attacks, but we have stopped lots of attacks, and I think it's very important we work together and we keep helping them and get them up to speed.
Lord West, many thanks indeed.
Thank you.
Still to come on the programme this evening.
She must have been in so much fear and pain.
A father's grief as Reeva Steenkamp's dad gives evidence against Oscar Pistorius. And yours for a cool £50 million. 5 News gets a look at the largest diamond in the world. All that and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. The father of Reeva Steenkamp has told a court that Oscar Pistorius should pay for killing her. Barry Steenkamp became highly emotional as he spoke at a sentencing hearing in South Africa, describing the moment he heard Reeva was dead and saying he thinks about her morning, noon and night. Layla Hayes reports.
Oscar Pistorius arriving in court for a hearing that will decide whether he could face 15 years in jail for murdering his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp.
Raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Today, giving evidence for the first time, Reeva's father described their family's pain.
Every day of my life, morning, noon, at night, early hours of the morning, I think of her all the time. I don't wish that on any human being. Finding out what happened, it devastated us.
Reeva Steenkamp was shot dead by Pistorius through his bathroom door. Today, her father, who had a stroke soon after her death, described the moment his wife June told him what had happened.
She mentioned Reeva. She says, "Come home immediately," and Reeva's name was there. And that's when I started to panic. And then driving home, I realised more and more Reeva's been killed. It hit me then. It's like it happened yesterday.
Pistorius was found guilty of murdering Reeva after a court overturned an earlier manslaughter verdict. Today, her father said photos of his daughter's body should be made public.
What I would like the world to see are the wounds inflicted onto Reeva and the pain that she must have gone through.
Reeva's father says he and his wife have forgiven Oscar Pistorius, but that doesn't exonerate him.
Oscar has to pay for what he did. He has to pay for it. He has to pay for his crime.
Oscar Pistorius will be sentenced later this week. Barry Steenkamp says he would like to meet and talk with him one day, but not yet. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
With me now is Heather Walker, South African journalist based here in London. Heather, it's the first time we've properly heard from Barry Steenkamp today.
Yes, he's been quite silent throughout the trial. He has had some health problems, which he mentioned on the stand today, that prevented him from testifying at the original trial. It's almost the closest we've got to hearing from the victim herself, a close family member, just describing the horrible, excruciating pain he's been through since her death.
I've spoken to her mother, June Steenkamp, before. She wrote a book a couple of years ago as well. But as you say, it was the visceral pain he described in trying to cope with his daughter's death that was breathtaking to hear in the court today.
Yeah, it was heart-wrenching. It was very difficult to watch. I think we all felt like we were right there in the room with him, going through all those emotions. And, you know, I guess hearing him talk about receiving the call, about, you know, he was confused, but he was scared. And I think we can all identify with that.
Why are we hearing from him now? Is this entirely his idea? Is the way the court works, or has he been encouraged to do this?
I'm quite sure he's been encouraged. I think it's a very clever move on behalf of the state. He's a powerful witness, giving his first-hand account of why he believes Pistorius should serve some time.
We're not entirely sure when sentencing could happen. We've been here before with waiting for the South African justice system to go through the motions. It could be Friday, it could be next week. But what is Oscar Pistorius likely to receive?
Well, most of the commentators are saying he probably will receive the 15 years that's been spoken about. How much of that he'll actually serve, we're not too sure. And obviously, he's already served some time, so they'll probably take that into account as well.
Heather, many thanks indeed. Now, a teenage driver has had a miraculous escape from a crash that virtually destroyed her car. Incredibly, the woman was able to walk away from this wreckage of her Volkswagen Polo after it left the A1 in Cambridgeshire and ploughed into trees. Now, when it comes to precious gems, it's fair to say this next one is a bit more precious than most. It is a 1,000-carat rough diamond that is expected to fetch tens of millions of pounds at an auction in London. Minnie Stevenson has been to have a quick look.
You are looking at the world's largest diamond to be discovered in over a century, being shown off at Sotheby's auction house before it goes on sale. But if you get rock envy, then look away now. Named the Lesedi Lorona, to be precise, it's 1,109 carats. Just to give you some perspective, the average engagement ring is around 1 carat.
Now that is what you call a rock, a diamond so precious that I've been told I'm not allowed to touch it, which to be honest is probably for the best. Now, given that it's over 3 billion years old, it's in pretty good nick and it's expected to go for over £50 million, so better get saving.
The diamond, which was discovered last year in Botswana, is the size of a tennis ball. In fact, the only other one larger in the world is the Cullinan diamond at over 3,000 carats, part of which now makes up the Queen's crown jewels. No wonder it looks heavy.
I'm nervous not to touch it, of course.
So if diamonds are forever, what's unique about this discovery?
You're looking at something that was formed just after the Earth was formed, 2 to 3 billion years ago. So you're looking at something that is really a fragment of the history of our world.
The diamond will go on sale at the end of this month. But with a £50 million price tag, I'd like to formally declare myself out of the bidding war. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
For that money, you'd like to think they'd polish it for you, maybe cut it as well, that'd be nice. And that's it from us. Sian Welby is here with the weather next. And Danny Sinha, of course, is back with updates throughout the evening here on Channel 5 with the latest on those scenes of yet more violence at Euro 2016 in France, this time in Lille, supposedly involving Russian and English fans once again, but perhaps Welsh fans too. Updates throughout the evening. For now, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.